Okay, who's doing the opening statement first? Do you want it to be
Does
us?
anybody want to start or should I pick? Yeah, go ahead,
Go
Julian.
ahead.
Start.
Or Glock will give the opening statement. Glock?
I do not see her in.
Glock left.
Wait.
Yeah, I don't see her in participants.
The fuck?
Did she leave when I got here?
No, I think it might have disconnected.
I got her back.
Okay. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Now we'll start giving opening statements.
Glock,
Yeah.
you're first.
Okay. Well, I mean, first, I just want to thank you guys for being here, Naomi, for moderating this discussion. But today, Julie and I are going to be defending the pro-life view, which is to say that in most cases, abortion is wrong. And we're going to present this case for how our ethical foundation provides justification for practical and pragmatic considerations regarding abortion. So simply, our view is just going to entail that any action which deprives an individual of a future like ours is prima facie wrong, in which abortion does deprive an individual of a future like ours, therefore leaving abortion to be prima facie morally wrong. And just to clarify, when we say that an action is prima facie morally wrong, we're expressing that there's some morally bad feature or some moral strike against it at face value. So like, for example, someone would say that lying is prima facie wrong, but it seems morally permissible to lie in order to save someone's life, right? So tying that back into our argument, any normal human fetus possesses a valuable future. And since abortion takes away that future from the fetus, it has the same wrong-making feature that killing an adult human being has, which clearly then entails the wrongness of abortion. And again, the primary goal of the government is justice, in which justice, means treating things according to the property of their nature. So, for example, if, people's nature requires them to have food to sustain their life, then I believe we should pass a law that helps aid that. That it would then follow that if the fetus's nature requires the mother's resources for survival, then, the obligation would entail. So altogether, just to kind of summarize our view, we believe that, we have a prima facie duty to not kill other people. Killing a fetus is in the same moral category as killing an adult human being, as it does contain the same wrong-making feature. Therefore, we should listen to our intuitions about the misfortune of death and restrict the act of elective abortions, as it is seriously prima facie morally wrong. I can see the rest of my time.
Thank you, Glock. Kenzie or Bronte, do you guys have opening statements?
Bronte, do you want to go?
Do I want to go? Sure. So I come into this discussion from a legal standpoint and from a public health standpoint. So I'm not here to say that you are wrong for disagreeing with abortion, but what I am here to say is that restricting access to healthcare leads to suffering and death of actual living people. And when we're talking about discussions that impact law and impact public health policy, we have to take into account not only what your ethical side of it is going to say, but how the policies or the outcome that you're advocating for is going to result in harm of actual living people, or the data that supports or shows the effects of the outcome that you're pushing for. And the statistics do show that these bans harm living people, and it goes against every single medical guideline that is currently set forth. And so that's the stance that we're taking.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I do want to highlight that it was outlined prior to accepting this debate that we were discussing the legality of abortion. Essentially, abortion should remain legal, Bronte and I being in the affirmative, and Julian and Glaucoma being in the negative. And that even if we were to concede that abortion is immoral, hypothetically, it still would not change our position that abortion should remain legal.
Okay. So everyone's done with their opening statements are. Can I just ask you, why do you think killing someone should be legally wrong?
So I don't know if you're directing that at a specific person, but I would argue that when it comes to the pro-life position, I do think ultimately a lot of it is emotional appeal, which is why you framed it as, why do you think it's morally permissible to kill someone? And I would argue that the expressed purpose of an abortion is to terminate pregnancy. which is what our point of view is, that someone should have the ability to terminate pregnancy. There are instances where pregnancy is terminated and it does not result in the death of the fetus, and there are instances where it is.
Yeah, well, if I'm looking at it from a purely consequentialist point of view, I'm going to say this kills the fetus, right? Because if I'm looking at the consequences and the fetus is dying, right, it doesn't matter what the purpose is. If the consequences are that bad, I think I'm going to make it legally impermissible.
Well,
But
I would
that isn't
also, I
Go
would
ahead.
also like to flip your question back onto you. You asked me why it is morally permissible to kill a fetus, or how is it morally permissible to kill a fetus? And I would ask you, how do you think it's morally permissible to protect yourself and protect your safety?
What does protecting yourself entail, right? So for example, if I was a gunman, right, and I put a gun to your head, and there were 3 people in front of you, and I told you, kill all those 3 people, would you do it?
Well, currently, legal precedent shows that I am allowed to use deadly force in order to protect myself. So if you point a gun at my head and you show that you are threatening my life, I can retaliate, even if my retaliation it ends up in a deadly force, and I'm legally allowed to do that under, you can call it castle doctrine, you can call it self-defense, but that's legal precedent that's set forth in.
But I'm asking you what the law should be. I'm not asking you what the law currently is. Okay, fine. Let me multiply it. What if I put a gun to your head and said, shoot 100 people? Do you think you're allowed to shoot 100 people so I don't kill you?
That's not a consistent analogy to abortion, and that's.
Well,
what-
wait, no, I'm just applying the principle you gave me. The principle gave you is
No.
if your life is endangered, you can violate other people's, right? Not to be harmed. So
But
I'm
it-
giving you a scenario in which your life is endangered and you can violate. You're saying you can.
I
violate
do
100
agree with
people's
her
lives.
that that's a false analogy and doesn't actually address the principle.
How does it not address the principle?
So the principle is like, when you're talking about the killing of the fetus, are you essentially talking about the capacity of murder where it's unjustified, or are we also including self-defense in like the term killing?
Well, I don't think it's self-defense. I think self-defense is when your life is, severely endangered. But if we're able to show that like you killing 100 people, just because I put a gun to your head is wrong, I think in the same way, carrying out 9 months of pregnancy in which your life is not endangered is going to be wrong too.
That's medically incorrect. Being pregnant is a risk to your life, and it is risk to your long-term health and longevity as a human being.
But
So
Bronte,
listen to me, Julian, I would appreciate you let me finish. So you said, I do not agree that terminating pregnancy is self-defense because you don't think that pregnancy puts a risk on your life. And those 2 things are objectively incorrect.
I didn't say pregnancy puts no risk on your life, but is the risk significant enough to end another person's life?
Who gets to decide what is enough risk that I have to take over my body?
I think we can decide rationally, right? We can just apply it to other scenarios. There's going to be a radical asymmetry, which you treat people in the womb and people outside of the womb. In what scenario would I believe the maternal mortality rate is 26 in 100,000. In what case scenario would you say it's okay to kill someone because there is a 26 in 100,000 chance that they may kill you?
So can you give me an example of a real life scenario which you would be legally obligated to give up your bodily autonomy and your bodily resources to save the life of another person, even if your refusal to do so led to their death?
To give up what do you mean by bodily resources? Like I can be forced to, work, provide my labor for something. That's going to use my bodily resources.
So that's not the same thing as your internal organs. We're talking about your blood, your energy, as in like your.
Yeah, it is using your energy. I think you think working's not using your energy?
I mean, your organ energy, your bodily energy, your organ.
Yeah, it is.
Your blood.
I'm pretty sure hard work is using your bodily energy.
Kenzie, do you have a way to explain this?
I think what Julian is trying to say is that material resources are equal to biological resources, and I disagree with that. Like, Julian, would you say that that when parents aren't providing children with food, that they should be removed from that home?
Wait, I don't think, Kenzie, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying biological resources are equal to material resources. I'm saying, right, that, my labor is an extension of my bodily resources, right? And when I have to use my labor to get money to provide for something maybe that I broke or a duty that I have, I'm using my bodily resources to make up maybe a wrongdoing or a duty that I have. So there are cases in the real world where we do use our bodily resources to sustain another person.
You're not forced by law to do so.
You're not forced by law to take care of your children?
No, you can give up your parental responsibilities at any point.
Okay, well, let's say hypothetically there was like a place where you couldn't give up those parental responsibilities. Do you think I can just leave the child there to starve?
Well, I actually prefer to base this discussion in reality. And the reality is that you can give up your parental responsibility at any point. You cannot be legally obligated to care for a child that you do not want to care for.
Well, I mean, like, if your logic can't be applied across hypotheticals, then, I mean, I think it's flawed.
Why would we be trying to put hypotheticals onto reality? We are,
But no,
we are
but-
talking
a
about
couple of
law.
things. Yeah, a couple of things, right? So I think hypotheticals serve good purpose in these conversations. I think number one, it outlines view entailment, right? And then number two, I think some of these hypotheticals should be grounded, nearly in what we could possibly see, or like what, someone might possibly do. So I think the questions about like, leaving your child in the woods and those hypotheticals, I think
I
they're
disagree.
useful.
I think taking it out of like what is the current status quo, because that's what we're talking about currently within the world that we live in. And within the world that we live in, you do have the right to transfer your parental obligation to someone else. So I
Correct.
think
Do you think that
addressing
there's-
like in this other world where this is reality, it is not beneficial to this conversation, especially with
Well,
the limited time constraint. that we
I'm
have.
not sure what's meant by reality there. I'm just saying like, if this is possible, which I think it's possible, I'm not, talking about something that we can't imagine happening in our real world. Like there could be a situation that Julie can give that just seems plausible to me. Like it seems like that could happen. But I think also I wanted to just quickly emphasize, like, I do understand that this is a legal debate, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page that, our foundation of anything that's going to be pragmatic, anything that we'll want to implement or be reflected into law will be based upon some ethical framework. Right? Like, sorry, I got a phone call. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just really wanted to emphasize like there's going to be a strong relationship between, ethics and morality in this discussion. So I think if we can
I don't necessarily think so, because we can even look at like within the current law, there are things that we would consider immoral that are still legal. And there are things that are not immoral that are legal. Or excuse me, that aren't immoral that aren't legal.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Again, we can cash out immoral, right? But I think like, at least when we're talking about, is this action going to be seriously wrong to the point where you're killing another person or to the point where it's justified in self-defense? Like, I think that's going to be a little different than talking about, should we make cheating illegal, right? Like, I think the level of immorality there, right, is gonna differ. So I definitely think, yeah. So that's just all I wanted to throw in really quick. I didn't want to derail.
So again, Julian, like we've already stated that abortion, again, we don't think is necessarily targeted to kill the unborn fetus, because again, there are instances of abortion where the fetus can survive, whether that is an induction abortion or a hysterotomy abortion.
Well, Kenzie, I already responded to you saying, I don't really care what the intended purpose is. I care about the consequences. If the consequence of you doing this action is going to be 600,000 people dying every year, then obviously I'm going to look at the consequences. Maybe the purpose of slavery was economic development, but I'm going to look at the consequences of the millions of people that suffered.
Do you know what the consequences of enduring pregnancy are?
Yeah, I'm sure there are some risks that come with pregnancy, of course, but this does not give you the right to infringe upon another person's right to life, or right to not be, killed.
You say that we don't have that right, but you're also not able to argue a legal precedent that says so. You're not able to argue a legal precedent that says that I have to risk my life by law to save or to benefit somebody else.
Well, I don't think you have to risk your life. I think if your life is in significant danger, I give you all the means to abort the fetus. I carry two principles. Like us pro-lifers, we want to promote life into law. We want to value life. Right? So we're going to put two things. If your life is significantly in danger, you can get an abortion. And the second thing is we want to give rights to the fetus, right? So we're going to make abortion impermissible in the cases where the mother's life is not in danger.
What is a significant?
Sorry, I was just going to say, and that argument is medically ignorant. You can say that as a non-medical person and as someone who doesn't have an understanding of the complexities of pregnancy, but pregnancy can be life-threatening at any point. And to say, oh, well, when your life is in danger, that's when we allow it. Just understand that when we're basing this argument in reality, that, oh, what constitutes enough threat to the life? And so your argument only works in a hypothetical world.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. All the time, medical professionals have to weigh out the risk of giving people certain treatments, right? They're going to tell you, oh, the risk of this treatment is it's super harmful to someone, right? The risk that someone dies from having this abortion is like going to be 100%.
Did you know that
not
donating blood only takes about 10 minutes, and I replenish my own blood cells, so it doesn't even result in permanent damage or effect to my body? Yet you can't force me to give you blood, even if you'll die by the result of me refusing. It doesn't
And I
matter.
would ask you the question, like, maybe once a year, is it immoral? Or is it not, supported by a legal system to force people to donate a little bit of blood?
Are you trying to argue that we should force blood donation and organ donation, even against people?
I don't think we should force organ donation. I'm saying, like, if they could take a little bit of blood out to save many, many people, do you think it's wrong for the government to do so?
Well, pregnancy does require organs. So if you're not going to argue for forced organ donation, then you also can't argue for forced pregnancy, because if it's only pregnancy that you're trying to argue.
Wait, are you giving an organ to your fetus? I'm confused.
Yeah, you actually do. One of your organs is occupied, and all of your organs.
Are you going to lose your organ like an organ transplant?
Yeah, it's actually fairly common for hysterectomies to happen after pregnancy, because you can have uterine prolapse, you can have uterine rupture. It is not uncommon for women to lose their uterus and the baby take away an organ from them because they inhabited it.
Yeah, that's going to be a medical complication. But in nature, the fetus isn't taking away an organ from you. Like, obviously, there can be medical complexities that happen. But in general, when we're saying that you cannot get an abortion, it's not going to imply you have to give up an organ or literally take one of your organs out and give it to someone else. That's going to be
you have to give up the use of your body. That is how that works.
Yes.
And you can't argue any other legal precedent or any other situation in which you would allow someone to use their organs and use their internal bodily resources against their will, but only.
Okay, I have a question. Does the fetus not also have bodily autonomy?
No, because they're not autonomous. You need to be autonomous to have bodily autonomy.
Does it not have the right to life?
Well, the right to life does not supersede the right to bodily autonomy. And we know this because of the legal precedent that has been set.
Wait, we know this because of current law?
Yes.
So you're not appealing, so you're not appealing to any jurisprudential framework, you're just appealing to what is currently law. So like if slavery was currently law now, you'd be appealing to that, correct?
No, because that goes against human rights.
Yeah, also does this.
Well,
Bingo.
I mean, how are we I don't even know how we're cashing out human rights, but I just think the point that we're making is just, appealing to what currently isn't going to help us reach some conclusion about what we think ought to be, right? There's going to be a gap that you'll have to bridge with that one. I mean,
Julian, this meeting's going to end in 10 minutes because you don't have a subscription.
Well, that's unfortunate. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Julian, what the fuck?
Okay, let's
We'll restart it. Keep going. Don't waste any more
Okay.
time. We'll restart it after.
Or we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Julian, do you think there's like any such thing as like a moral dilemma?
Yeah, I think there's moral dilemmas.
So how do you like it when Bronte brought up like human rights? So like obviously you recognize that the pregnant person like has rights to their body.
Yeah.
So why would the fetus be permitted to use those to have access to their body without that person's consent?
Well, Kenzie, I want to ask you a question. How did the woman get control of her body? How did she get rights over her body? She was put in the body that constitutes her person, right? And she got rights simply by constituting her body. The same way the fetus is put in a position where it's going to have rights merely by how it came into existence.
So it has rights because it exists?
Yes. Same reason women have rights. Just simply by their existence.
Same reason women have rights is because we exist.
Yes.
So are you saying, so let me get this straight. Because the fetus exists inside the womb, therefore it has rights to the womb?
Yes.
So if the fetus exists outside the womb, then there is no obligation.
If the fetus exists outside, wait, I think once you have rights, you don't lose them unless you die.
Well, but
That's how
right,
we
but you
understand
can
rights.
you can make an embryo outside the womb, correct?
Yeah. I mean, like,
Right. So it wouldn't have rights then?
well, given its circumstance, it obviously would have rights based on its existence, right? But like it wouldn't have a right over
Right,
someone's
but
body.
it was created outside the womb.
Yeah, it wouldn't have a right over someone's body because that's not in where it exists.
Okay, so where its location depends on what rights it has?
Yeah, I think your location is going to like impact what rights you have. I think it's not unreasonable to say someone in Texas may have different rights based on like the culture there than someone in New York. I
Could
think
you
that's how we
expand on
understand
that?
rights. Huh?
Could you expand on that?
Okay, so like maybe in like for example, imagine like tipping culture in like England versus like America. I think like the rights of workers in New England, they are entitled to more money by their employers than in America, because we don't tip. They don't tip in England. We tip in America. So it's going to be based on like some social framework they have there.
Aren't you just applying to legality in that sense?
No, I'm appealing to the way the law should be. Jurisprudence.
Based on their culture.
Yeah, I think some rights we have are going to be circumstantial.
Are
Like
gonna
I
be
think how the way that our rights applies to certain circumstances, like they're gonna have to be circumstantial. Like all rights aren't going to be like categorical, applied in every single circumstance. I don't think that's how it works.
okay. So I would obviously argue against this premise. I don't think that the fetus has any right to someone else's body, just like anyone else doesn't have the right to your body. And therefore the pregnant person would be able to reclaim their body at any time.
Yeah,
and again, I feel like you guys are kind of arguing different things. Like I thought from what the opening statement was, is that it was wrong because it's depriving of a future, I'm sorry, what was it?
future like ours, right? But you're basically conceding, right, that it's killing the fetus, right? It's depriving of the future.
No, yes, there is abortion that does.
Yeah, so you're
result in
conceding
the
to our
end of the
main point
fetus.
about the morality of it, right? You're killing another person. So
No.
there's not much to argue there.
Well, sorry,
That
what
can
is
be
the no
one
to?
outcome of an abortion. Yes, I've already said that. But there are other outcomes of abortion where the fetus does not die. So that's where I'm trying to pinpoint it on, that abortion is centered around the termination of pregnancy. It's not centered around the killing of an unborn person.
Wait, I already told you my response to that. It's going to be a consequentialist response.
I know you told me your response, but I was just restating my premise.
Yeah, and I
because
mean, like, if
again,
you're not going to care about 600,000 people that die every year, then I think there's going to be a problem with your view.
Well, if we go back to legal precedent, then there are deaths that are permissible under our current ethical framework and legal framework. If you are acting in self-defense and your act of self-defense ends up in the loss of a life, it is permissible under our current legal system and under legal precedent to do so, because it's been considered morally or ethically permissible to end a life in the defense of your own bodily autonomy in your own life.
Yeah, and I already stated earlier, right, that self-defense isn't going to apply here. But I told you the chance of dying is 626 in 100,000. And I told you that's not enough to apply self-defense principle.
you
Did
still
you know
haven't
that-
defined what significant is.
Define significance. I don't think you can like give an exact number for significance.
Then how would we determine when it's appropriate that an abortion is permissible?
Wait, how do we determine it normally in legal scenarios?
Well,
You
I
said
already
there
told
has to
you-
be a significant risk. Shouldn't you have to quantify that?
Yeah, well, we'd have some general guidelines. Like I'm
which
sure
we
if
already
you-
do. We already do, and we discussed this. Even a blood draw, which is next to painless, takes 10 minutes, and you rejuvenate your own blood cells, is not permissible under the law. That is considered to be too much of a violation of your bodily autonomy and bodily resources. And pregnancy objectively requires much more harm, much more risk, and much more resources than a blood draw. So if we're talking about legality and current precedent, you can't, and we're setting a threshold for risk and a threshold for harm, and you're saying, oh, well, it would exist. It does. And I've explained where it exists, and we've already surpassed
Yeah,
it.
and can we just say that our preference for the threshold is different than yours, Julian?
Well, no, I already gave you like a scenario, right? With this blood drop thing, I asked you about jurisprudence. I asked you, would it be immoral to force, people to give up like a certain amount of their blood every year to save like hundreds of thousands of people? And if you're going to say no to that, I think that's severely immoral. I think if you can give up your blood to save that many people, it would be good for the government to legally enforce that. I do not see a problem with it. If you're just going to appeal to how current law is and not give me any jurisprudential framework, then I don't see the point of your argument.
No, I don't think the government should be forced for anyone to give their blood.
I agree. I don't think anyone should be forced to give blood against their will.
Even if it saves
You don't think-
100,000 people?
Correct.
It currently would. That's not a hypothetical, that's reality.
Yeah,
If-
wait, yeah.
if more-
You're saying I shouldn't give up some of my blood to save 100,000 people, and it would be immoral for the government to force me to do that. I think that's a ridiculous position.
I think it's a ridiculous position to say that the government can force me to give any part of my body to someone else against my will.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
think
Julian, I mean, if your liver, your kidneys, your blood, everything that makes you up, if us taking all of those parts from you saved 20, 30, 40, 50 people, should we do so?
like if my organs did.
Yeah, your organs, your blood,
Well,
your
I think
heart,
there's an
to the
extent
point
to it,
where
right?
it killed you even.
Wait, I think there's an extent to it. I think I'm allowed to take some. I think the government would be allowed to take some blood from people to save a lot of people. I do not think they would be able to take some organs out to save a lot of people. That's different. Like
Can you
that's
expand
a
on
more
that? Can you expand? Like, why are you giving this specific preference and threshold? Couldn't we then just say that we
you don't
have a
think we
different
you don't
preference or
think we
threshold?
have you don't think we have thresholds? You don't think taking a kidney out is more significant than forcing someone to give blood to someone?
Donating a kidney is a lot safer than pregnancy. So if you are not okay with the risk involved in kidney donation, then you shouldn't be okay.
Wait, no,
with the
wait,
risk in
it's
pregnancy.
not about, it's about losing one of your organs.
I'm just trying to keep you ethically and, logically consistent.
Wait, Bronte, can I ask, what is the point of your healthcare movement?
What is the point of what?
You're like, what is the point of the healthcare policies you're advocating for? Or what is your objective here? What's your aim?
To benefit public health.
To benefit public health? In
Yes.
what way? In like killing 600,000 people a year?
Well, abortion funds have
Guys,
been shown.
although you guys are having a great discussion, you have less than a minute left. So Kenzie, I would recommend ending it before it ends itself and then saving the recording and then starting a new one.
Okay. It's not my Zoom, so I can end it, but
Okay, but try to save the recording, Julian, start another one and
it'll
then
go to Julian. Like, I'm not, I don't have control.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'll re-put the what do you call it? The code.
Yeah, okay. I'm probably just gonna not log on to the next one. If we want to end it
Wait,
here.
why?
No, I want
Are we
to
getting
I want to
anywhere?
get into your healthcare thing.
Okay, that's
Just let-
fine.
just
That's
give me
fine.
time.
You're right. We have 20 minutes. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.